Hezekiah was king in Judah.
He was a good king because he trusted in God.
He tore down the idols that the kings before him had set up.
He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord.
Hezekiah trusted God when the Assyrian army advanced on Jerusalem.
There was a huge army of soldiers camped around the city ready to take over.
It was an impossible situation for Hezekiah, but not for God.
The Lord went out and struck down all 185,000 men in a single night.
God blessed Hezekiah and made him prosper wherever he went.
After this, Hezekiah became sick, and God told him that he was going to die.
But Hezekiah begged and begged for God to keep him alive.
So God granted Hezekiah's request.
He added 15 years to his life.
But they were the worst 15 years.
In those days, messengers came from Babylon and visited Hezekiah because they heard he was sick.
Hezekiah wanted to show off to these Babylonian ambassadors
He showed them all his treasure house,
The silver,
the gold,
the spices,
the precious oils,
all his military weapons.
everything he had in his kingdom he showed to the Babylonians.
The prophet Isaiah came and asked him, "What did you show them?"
Hezekiah said, "I have shown them everything that I own."
Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house will be carried to Babylon.
Nothing shall be left.
Even some of your descendants will be servants in the Babylonians' court.
The thing that Isaiah said came true.
Because God's word always comes to pass.
One day Babylon would come and conquer all of Jerusalem.
They would take all of the treasures that Hezekiah foolishly showed the ambassadors.
What did Hezekiah do wrong?
The Bible tells us in Proverbs 4:23 to keep our hearts with all vigilance.
For from it flow the springs of life.
What does it mean to keep our hearts?
Does that mean that we're not to just give it away?
In a way, yes.
When the Bible talks about our heart, it's not referring to the organ that pumps blood.
Our hearts are the deepest part of who we are.
The part of us where our desires and emotions come from.
The word keep in the verse means to guard or protect.
We must guard our hearts.
What does it mean to guard our hearts?
It means to guard our hearts against the things our hearts want to do.
Not everything our heart wants to do is a good thing.
Jeremiah 17:9 tells us that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick.
We need to guard it against what it wants.
That's why Christians follow Jesus and His Word, not their hearts.
Guarding our hearts means to protect them from outside influences that would draw us away from loving God.
Not everyone or everything should have access to the deepest parts of who you are.
Sometimes people want to draw on our emotions and pull us away from God.
They want to manipulate us into following their false way of living.
Hezekiah allowed the Babylonians right into his treasure chamber.
Eventually, Babylon would take over.
The best way to guard our heart is to give it to Jesus.
We must give our hearts to Jesus.
He will make it clean.
Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me.
Jesus tells us that where our treasure is, our hearts will be also.
Our treasure is what we value the most in our lives.
Our hearts will want to hold on to the things that are most valuable to us.
What's the most valuable thing to you?
We must value God above all else.
God is more important than what people think of us.
God is more important than our comfort.
God is more important than wealth or fame or anything else that we could dream up.
When we give Jesus our hearts and value God over everything else, our hearts are in the best place they can be.
We won't be driven by our wild emotions or desires.
We won't be easily duped by the enemy.
Instead, we will be safe and secure in His hands.
Have you given your heart to Jesus?
Trust your heart to Jesus today.